The Everything Sequel podcast is brought to you by Brew Bar and the Vegas Beer Guys.
The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. 'Cause we learned it from you, Dad. Welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast. This is still the 1982 Singles Edition. This is it, everybody. A rubber match between Matt and Tom. We're talking Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, of course, my co-host, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Give it to us, Tom.
Don't you have any Halloween spirit? And I'm genuinely not sure if that's a joke or not.
All right, joining us as well.
For the record, there is no such thing as Halloween spirit.
Right. Joining us as well, of course, sticking with us throughout all these 1982, we're calling single sequels, Matthew Aldrich of co-writer of Coco. Hello, Matt.
Hey guys, we're here. We've arrived at.
We're at the seminal moment.
We've arrived at the
No
place.
more days to Halloween 3.
No more days to Halloween. I think I've made myself clear over the past few episodes that this was my least favorite of the four.
Yeah, but when we talked about Airplane 2, you started talking yourself out of it. You were getting more and more angry.
Yeah, I might have
before
to.
we discussed that movie.
When we recap at the end, I might have to revisit my rankings because Airplane 2 really was, not only lazy, but it was, it's just, we're not going to relitigate Airplane 2, but for me, this movie, on the whole, just didn't deliver on any of the promises that a sequel should. I laud its attempt to turn Halloween into an anthological series like Twilight Zone. I actually think that's a really good idea.
150 years before American Horror Story started on television.
Yeah,
they had this idea.
I like the idea behind it, and I wish it had worked, honestly. But you mentioned Tommy Lee Wallace. Was that?
Yeah. He also directed Fright Night Part 2 and the It miniseries.
And he is he was production designer on the first two Halloweens.
Yeah.
And he's a Carpenter protege. If you see a picture of him, he looks like Carpenter's son.
Oh wow.
He's not, but he looks like a mini John Carpenter.
Well, listen, we
I found this the least enjoyable to watch. That was
okay.
That's
let me tell you this though. I referenced at the end of our last episode, the last thing I said was Rotten Tomatoes gave Piranha 2 The Spawning 6%. This movie, which Matt and I think I have right, Matt, when I say that we both list this movie as our least favorite in the series, or rather, my third least favorite. I had Airplane 2 last. Were you had this movie dead last?
I had it dead last, yeah.
Tom, this is your favorite movie in the series. The two movies most popular, consensus-wise, on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie and Airplane 2. This movie at 41% and Airplane 2 at 42%.
So we're through the looking glass. We are completely out of touch with America.
Well, it is, I mean...
And I've said before, Tom, the only reason I think you like this movie as much as you do, we're 4 minutes into the podcast. I'm going to ruin the James Bond. This is a James Bond movie.
I don't think you're wrong. But I like it for other reasons.
Because I'm right.
Unconsciously.
No, I'm saying James Bond is such a part of your DNA that even when you don't recognize a movie as a James Bond movie, you will like it the most in a series of single sequels because it's a James Bond movie.
Even after writing a note that describes one of the characters as Daniel's Moneypenny, I still hadn't clocked that this was a Bond movie. I don't know the difference
Come on, but you
between
even have a
my
Blofeld.
own Bond frame of reference and a Bond frame of reference in the movie I'm watching. I don't know the difference anymore. But yeah, you've got something there. And it certainly not a horror movie.
But we've got a full-on Blofeld character here, right?
Well, he's a very nice version of Blofeld. I mean, we'll talk about this more, but I don't think he's a villain.
The main bad guy?
I think he's actually more of. I think he's a more successful hero than Daniel is. That's probably the one thing we might be able to agree on. That he's a more successful protagonist of this movie than Dr. Daniel Chalice.
The protagonist of this movie, who I refuse to learn his name.
Dr. Daniel Chalice.
I call him the poor man Stacy Keach.
Oh, wow.
My heart hurts.
No.
I'm so sorry, Tom Atkins. If I don't know if you're alive or dead.
That is a heaping loaf of disrespect
No.
for Tom Atkins.
Poor man. All through my notes, I just wrote, because I was shorthanding, I just wrote PMSK. It was just the poor man Stacy Keach throughout all my notes. In the same way that
more.
He was the like any movie that asks me to like get behind and root for the alcoholic absentee father,
Right.
We don't have to stop there.
doctor who gets handsy with the nurses guy. Like I there's nothing about this guy. When I realized that he was going to be our protagonist, I went, fuck me. I was like, don't even try to get me.
One of
to
my
care
notes
about this
too.
guy.
One of my notes says deadbeat dad. And the only reason that our heroine knows to find him is because the nurses told her what bar he's
Right.
at.
This is the line of the movie for me. I wrote it down. So poor man Stacy Keach is at the bar, and the young woman comes and finds him there, and she says, "One of the nurses told me I could find you here." Let's unpack that line. First of all, one of the nurses. Any of the nurses could have told him, because we've seen how he treats nurses already. I could find you here. No, I would find you here. They knew exactly. She is sugarcoating. She is sugarcoating the truth here when she says one of the nurses told me I could find you here. Bullshit. All of the nurses said you would be here. You rotten drunk of a fuck.
Let's not stop. Let's not stop with the list of charges. Okay, so we've got absentee father, divorcee, drunk, lech, may or may not be a pedophile. He's certainly not concerned enough about the possibility that he may be a pedophile. Terrible detective, even worse spy. Goes into a fugue state at the moment any danger comes his way. Can't hold himself in a fight. Loses a fight to a broken robot 3 times in succession. I mean, I love a sloppy hero. Right. This is 1982 is the year of Raiders of the Lost Ark. I know that Spielberg's idea behind Indiana Jones was that he be a sloppy hero counterpoint to the usual kind of slick action villain. But that's the Hollywood version of this. This is Dr. Daniel Chalice is the real stuff.
So here's the thing,
real world sloppy hero.
With these sloppy heroes, another sloppy hero of 1982 is Paul Newman in The Verdict, right?
Yeah.
And so the key to these sloppy heroes, though, is that there has to be one thing about them that they still fucking value, and they do well. Like, everything else about them could be totally corrupted.
Yeah.
They could be on the take, drinking around the clock, blah, 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 but they still believe in justice. You know, that there's something at the core of them that says, like, if I give up on this, I might as well put a bullet in my head, because then I'll truly have nothing left. You know, and
I'll take justice over a huge payday.
Sure, exactly, which is what The Verdict is all about, where he against all reason and all advice keeps making the wrong choice in pursuit of justice. In this movie, there is nothing that he values, there's nothing he holds dear, there's nothing he does well, and there's no one who really loves him. There's nobody he's doing it for. Nobody.
Well,
that
that's
he's
the funny thing
to.
is because when his ex-wife is introduced, who, by the way, is Annie from the first Halloween movie, she's introduced as this nagging piece of shit bitch. But then, 20 minutes into the movie, I'm thinking to myself, oh, I think she has a point.
Oh, she definitely has a point.
She's right.
He straight up lies to her.
Yes.
Let's back up for a second.
Well, I just want to say, I don't I love the fact that he's a sloppy hero. I think he has one good move in this movie, which comes, let's generously say it comes out of left field, where he suddenly understands how ancient magic and electronics work together. He has an epiphany. He figures out how to. He
grabs a box of buttons.
Yeah, that's right. He throws a box of buttons out, and he figures out that that's how you do this. He's nice to black people, which is a big thing in Reagan's America. But beyond all that, this is all at the level of character, at the level of performance. Tom Atkins is the most affable human being I've ever seen on screen. When this fucking monster of a protagonist is filtered through Tom Atkins, it all comes out completely affable, and I absolutely adore this performance. I couldn't
disagree more.
I know.
The actor where we are. Me, I would cross a busy street to punch this guy in the face. There's nothing, if this had been Steve Guttenberg, say,
and you defeat him very easily.
Yeah,
and he would just go down.
Yeah. I think when he saw me coming, he might just fall into a bush.
He likes black people. He likes poor people. Redemption.
Let's back up again, because this is a.
Let's back up on our backup.
Let's back up on the backup, because what we have here, again, I'm my premise for what unites all of these movies is not Ken Finkelman, but the fact that these movies effectively killed their respective franchises. Right. Halloween obviously sort of rose from the ashes, but to provide background of this, what was remarkable about Halloween 3 was that it was going to be a non-Michael Myers movie, mm-hmm. right? That after making 2 Michael Myers films, John Carpenter got the idea, or they sort of made a decision to go with the franchise to make it anthological and to just every year have a new horror film or suspense film that centered around the Halloween holiday, the holiday of Halloween, and a la Twilight Zone or I think it's really interesting that 82 also gave us Creepshow, which was a variant on this idea of doing an anthological horror. And so, like I said, I think the idea was actually really good, and I wish, not being a fan of the Halloween movies, I wish they had succeeded. I think there were a lot of things sort of going against them, making this idea this was going to be a hard sell, because first of all, you've already made 2 movies, you can't sort of you've established the rule that Halloween movies have this one guy in them and he wears this mask, right? You sort of, by making the second one of Michael Myers movies, sort of cemented in the formula. And so to say by the third one we're gonna now reinvent the formula and we're gonna make it anthological, that's an uphill climb. Plus you had a villain in Michael Myers that was really effective. So it's again, going back to that unpleasant surprise thing, not having Michael Myers in a Halloween movie, it's an unpleasant surprise. You're not delivering on the thing that I think a lot of audience members would want to see. So I feel
didn't they try to keep it secret, Tom?
Well, let me talk to you. I've been reading. Well, this is what I was going to go into. I've been reading the book Taking Shape, which is a wonderful book. If anyone's interested in sequels, this is a book you should read. There's actually 2 of them. It's all about the Halloween franchise and how these movies were made. And the background to this, first of all, everyone but Mustafa Akkad, the producer of the Halloween movies, who's one of the 4 stakeholders of the rights to the franchise, was completely behind this idea. He was the only one who thought it wouldn't work. Unfortunately, he sold his stake in the franchise to Dino De Laurentiis, so he had absolutely no say. He would have vetoed this, because if one of the stakeholders vetoed, they couldn't go ahead. He would have definitely vetoed this. He didn't. And later on, he bought back the rights, and the first thing he did was put Michael Myers back in it. So everyone was in on it. My talking point for this movie, you're going to get the same answer no matter what question you ask. It's going to be like, I'm a Senate Republican on Meet the Press, and you're both Chuck Todd. Whatever question you ask, I'm going to go back to the same thing. The problems with this movie are all outside the movie. It's about the way it was marketed. It's about the way it was misrepresented to audiences. It's about what came before and what came afterwards. The fact that they should have, which they absolutely didn't, own up to the fact that this was an anthology movie. The title is completely wrong. Mm-hmm. All those exterior aspects of this movie are the problem. To me, it completely asserts its autonomy, and succeeds on its own terms. That may be the last thing I say on this podcast, because I have, like, I could go either way on the robots. Okay, they're clearly not part of the original premise. They were a late addition. They don't need to be there. I get that. Not all of the performances are great. Okay, this is kind of uneven, and that's it. That's literally everything else I think works in this movie. But behind the scenes, and in terms of how this was shown to audiences, both before, both the way it was presented, the way it was pre-promoted, promoted during the release, and subsequently talked about, was a complete misfire in every possible respect. They should have not titled it in a way that made it look like it was part of the franchise. They should have owned up to the fact Michael Myers wasn't in it, that it wasn't a horror movie, that it was a science fiction movie, and not even a scary science fiction movie. They should, in my opinion, have run with this anthology series idea.
I don't disagree with anything you said.
Yeah. But internally, everything in the movie, again, apart from the robots and some of the performances, I think this is a fantastic piece of cinema.
That's where you and I part ways. I think even in the internal thing, I feel like there is a taste issue, that the taste dial is set to a setting that I can't kind of get behind, and that's the canned response I'm going to have. That I see sort of across the board. It's epitomized in like the love scenes between the young,
those are rape scenes.
The rape scenes between exactly. The young girl and poor man Stacy Keach. Like you can't like there's a
his name.
There's a taste level that
his name is Tom Atkins. Say his name.
No.
Oh.
There is a taste level that the film, so like there's that kind of taste level, and then there is like the sort of comedic, amateurish, like overuse of the chirons that are always telling us exactly where and when we are. That make it really makes me like not feel safe or secure in the hands of the filmmaker. It feels like internally like this guy, as you're saying, like he said he's the art director.
Or he was production designer.
Production designer.
Yeah, on the first Halloween.
So yeah, like it feels like maybe he's sort of cutting his teeth in front of us with some of these things, but I just feel like they're the underpinning of this movie and sort of the taste that is guiding this movie, I just find so tasteless. Like it's so not my cup of tea. But like, again, on paper, the premise is fine. It's a body snatcher movie, right? It's a sci-fi pod people kind of body snatcher.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a key intertext here.
Yeah,
and that's why I think that if they could have reframed the publicity for this movie with as much confidence as they assert the fact that this is a piece of paranoid sci-fi within the movie, we wouldn't have had half the trouble in the way that people were thinking about this movie.
I agree. I agree that the way that this movie is presented, and the number 3 in the title, it does.
That was unwise.
It tees up the wrong movie and in every way, and so much about a successful movie is meeting audience expectations, and the marketing people could have teed this up however they wanted. The only truly scary thing about this movie, in my opinion, is the poster for it, and the poster is kind of remarkable misleading. And it's something that I actually remember. I remember seeing that in movie theaters in '82, and I remember being scared by it then. And you see it now, and it's scary now. And when you see that the poster has only the most tenuous connection to the actual movie, like the poster is the poster for a different movie, and I always feel like
they didn't know what the movie was when they made that poster. They had no idea. That's what I'm saying.
Like you had to in movies you have the luxury of being able to set audience expectations. You have the luxury of framing these movies however you want to frame them, and it always baffles me that movies are framed one way, and then you sit down and watch the movie and you're like, that wasn't that. It's like seeing a trailer for a movie, and you go see the movie and you're like, oh man, that movie wasn't an action movie at all. They just cut an action trailer out of a maybe a more thoughtful movie because they were trying to sell it as an action movie, and that's always such a bad idea because people generally want to feel like they got what they paid for.
Well, it was an odd mix of naivete, as I understand it, naivete and cynicism. That meant that they were worried that they would lose the built-in audience for Halloween if they didn't call it Halloween 3. But they were also the naive part was that they genuinely thought that the audience, once they started watching the movie, would completely buy into it, and and they also thought they covered their backs by putting the words "all new" on the poster, which, as they say in Taking Shape, kind of negates the fact that every new movie has "all new" written on the poster. But here's another interesting little tidbit, which also suggests to me that. Also the laziness of the audience in not meeting this movie halfway as something different. Roger Ebert, who, I respect greatly.
This movie is on his most hated list.
Right, but he wrote this. He did not understand this movie to the point that he actually wrote in his review that this movie picks up at the end of Halloween 2. So even going into the movie, once the movie had started, he did not understand.
You know what? I read his review You're right.
He did not understand that this wasn't that this was an anthology movie. So, when even you're the leading film critic of the time,
yeah, he
didn't get it.
He had assumed that she was sifting through the ashes of what happened at the end of Halloween 2.
Right.
Not picking up on that she was sifting through the ashes of what happened in this movie.
So there's also, there's also a kind of a, I think part. I'm not gonna say. I think the audience are also somewhat to blame for doing that kind of tunnel vision fan thing. I mean, not from Ebert. He just disrespects horror basically, and horror sequels in particular. But
yeah.
Yeah,
we're at a place where Tom will vehemently defend this movie.
Hey, I've already told
Matt
you I don't like the robots.
Right. So, but we have one for and one against, and what I'm finding interesting as I'm listening to the two of you is I'm on the fence in between. I officially declared this as a bad movie, and towards the bottom of my list of the 4 single sequels, I really want to like this movie more than I find myself able to, for all the reasons you've discussed, Tom. And like you have said, Matt, on paper, good idea for a movie. I love the idea of the anthology. I find it kind of sublimely fantastic, this idea of a sci-fi movie with the robots. All of that appeals to me, but the piece of shit man at the center of it really got under my... Played by Tom. I'll say his name. Played by Tom Atkins, who I love as an actor.
It changes everything.
It doesn't. It doesn't, though. For me, it doesn't change everything.
Phil Nobile Jr. from Fangoria would also vehemently disagree with you.
The second her tit goes in his mouth, I'm like, oh, Jesus, get me out of this fucking movie. And there's too much of that bullshit peppered throughout this movie for me to really like it. There are plenty of things I like in this movie, but at the end of the day, it's a misfire.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you guys this. Like Tom, because I feel like somebody needs to pitch this movie. Like, what is the story? If it's not Michael Myers chasing everybody, what is the story of this movie?
Well, let me tell you, like the origin. I mean, I have the benefit of knowing like how this script got written. So the original, well, I can give you the pitch that Deborah Hill gave to Nigel Neal, who wrote the foundational draft of this script, which was it's witchcraft meets the computer age. That's all she said to him. And he came up with...
Okay, that's there.
Roughly what's on screen now, minus robots and plus racism. So the next pass was an uncredited John Carpenter rewrite, and he was mainly concerned with toning down the anti-Irish sentiment in the movie because, I mean, there's a fair bit of stereotyping and like blarney here, but apparently John Carpenter described the original Nigel Neal script as like, it was like a Southern segregationist take on the British-Irish relationship.
Oh, wow. Shit.
Yeah.
And this is right in the middle of the Troubles.
Right. And then Tommy Lee Wallace did another rewrite, which is I think is where if I remember correctly, the robots came into it. So
it's just a Frankenstein
this has been passed through a few
monster.
hands, but
yeah, right, exactly. That's what I was just gonna say. It sounds like a Frankenstein movie.
But not Nigel Neal's idea, which I think is still translates on screen, is that it's a satire of the corruptive influence of commercial television. And Nigel Neal, for those of you who don't know, was largely a television writer from Britain who was responsible for writing Quatermass, which was television and then film. The Stone Tape, the Future of the Sex Olympics, and often this idea of like broadcast media as a source of horror mixed in with science fiction was always kind of in his work, and I think it still largely exists on those terms. But Nigel Kneale did take his name off it. He wasn't happy. He didn't think it was horrific enough, which is interesting given what we're saying about the movie. John Carpenter, I think, definitely took it down the Invasion of the Body Snatchers route because, you know, he's into remaking 1950s horror sci-fi. How, you know, that he's definitely into that kind of pastiche form. And Tommy Lee Wallace brought the robots. So
well, there you have it.
This is how, as I understand that that it went. But yeah, I think it's science fiction satire. The storyline is more or less Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and in fact, the ending of this movie reinstates the original ending to that movie, which was replaced by a censor's ending, which was more of a kind of happy ending, where it was originally supposed to end on that same cliffhanger where you didn't know whether the pod people were going to take over the world or not.
All right, well, let's
take
our first break. We have a lot of background for further discussion, and we'll take a break and we'll.
The clock is ticking. It's almost time.
If you're anything like me, you spend the majority of the day wondering whether you want coffee, beer, or wine. Whichever way you fall, Brew Bar has you covered. Located in the heart of 3rd Avenue Village in glorious downtown Chula Vista, California, which is also my neck of the woods, Brew Bar is a coffee shop, bar, and eatery rolled into one delightful package. Tim and Alex run the place, and let me tell you, listeners, these guys know their coffee. And after you've been in their company, so will you. They turned me on to pour over, and it's literally all I drink now. If for some crazy reason you don't want to try the best coffee in the world, they've got espresso drinks, all kinds of teas, and even coffee cocktails. You heard me? Coffee tails. And we're just getting started. Bottle service on craft beer and wine, alcoholic and caffeinated potions, an all-day food menu with plenty of vegan options. All served up in an atmosphere hip enough to know you're getting the best quality, but not too hip that you feel the need to drive to 7-Eleven and get a bucket of brown swill. Brew Bar. It's the best place to be for beer, wine, coffee, and tea. And if you go, you might even see me.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are back. The three of us are here discussing Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. All right, guys.
Let me start by issuing an apology to Tom Atkins.
Too late. I represent the estate of Tom Atkins.
I have reflected, and I am guilty of taking on my anger on the movie on the actor involved in executing the movie. I don't think he is a bad actor. I just found, as you were saying, Mike, there's something just so unappealing and sort of tasteless about the main character of this movie anyway. I don't know if, I suggested Steve Guttenberg might have made him palatable to me, but I don't even think lovely, sweet Steve Guttenberg would have.
No, not sweet Guttenberg?
I don't think so. I think I would have been just as angry at Steve Guttenberg. So I'm angry at the character.
Yeah, me too.
And
yeah.
I'm angry
at the character.
The filmmaker.
I have a note here that says when Ellie speaks the line, "Where do you want to sleep?" I assumed that Tom Atkins was going to say, "In your vagina."
He might as well have said that.
That's where I figured this movie was going.
That was the subtext of his answer.
Yeah.
The central, I mean, this is representationally the central problem here is that they let him off the hook so often by making it seem that every woman in this movie is available to him at all times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, that's the big problem, is the fact that whenever in these moments where implausibly he suddenly becomes chivalrous and respectful of boundaries, all the emphasis is put on the fact that the women are inviting him to sexually harass.
Well, this speaks to
commit statutory rape on them.
Yeah.
And it's just, you just don't buy it. And it's in fact you're just more like, well, he's clearly putting that out into the world too.
Well, that's the thing. So the problem with this movie, and Matt, you talked about this in, I think, our introductory episode, talking about these movies were the brain food we were fed when we were kids. And this character is treated by all other characters in this movie like he's a scamp.
Yeah, the movie...
And he's not a scamp. He's more of a predator.
He's a predator and a criminal, and he's negligent. He has no business practicing medicine. He has no business... So here's the premise of this film.
Somebody kills one of his patients, runs out of the hospital, blows himself up in his own car, and this character looks at that car burning up like, oh, that's peculiar.
Yeah, there's so many moments where you're like, you're pretty underwhelmed by what is supposed to be terrifying me as the audience. Your main character in a horror film is your Cypher, right? They are doing the things that you wish you could do. They are feeling all the same feelings that you're supposed to feel. When they're scared, you're scared, and vice versa. And the sort of muddy, like, trying to read into this man's feelings. It's kind of trying to see through a glass of mud with some cigarette butts put out in it. Like, it just, you can't really see into what this guy is doing. The premise of this movie is a doctor loses a patient in a very bizarre and mysterious way. And the patient's daughter, who is distraught, he feels for this patient's daughter who is distraught that she believes her father was murdered, that he didn't die sort of accidentally, and together they set off to solve the father's murder. I can say that in 25 words or less, and it makes kind of sense where you're like, okay, doctor sort of is self-deputized as an amateur detective.
It's like Quincy.
Yeah, like we kind of love to see amateur detectives
diagnosis murder.
Yeah. And so, but as you were saying, Tom, like, he's not even good at that. Like, he's I would rather see Encyclopedia Brown solve this case.
But in terms of what you said about, I don't know, obviously, I don't identify with the toxic masculinity, even if maybe I'm guilty of some of his inappropriate behavior. I'm not saying I'm not, but I don't identify with it. I definitely identify with how out of depth he is at all times. And that's where my identification point is. One of my favorite moments in this movie is when he engages into a fight with what we later find out are androids. At this point, we just think they're kind of henchmen.
We think they're Aryans.
Little Reaganites.
And
exactly. Aryan Reaganites.
He kind of punches. Daniel punches, and it has no effect, and he just says, "Oh, Jesus." I thought he is what I would be in a fight of this nature.
But there's
even when he's saving the day, he reminds me of like Oliver Hardy in the middle of a piece of physical comedy. And I think it's that bumbling nature that you're absolutely right. It's completely wrong for a horror protagonist. But he's my kind of victim, although in the movie he's treated as a hero.
Right.
But this movie also treats a man who is not villainous in any way as a villain, so I don't know what's going on.
Except he's trying to murder the nation's children en masse.
Yeah.
So
the thing about this movie is
the masks. Can we talk about the masks for a second?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so part of what at the root of just when you think that this movie is on
Wait,
solid
hang on,
footing.
Matt. P.S. Hang on for just
Yeah.
a moment for the audience if you haven't seen this movie. P.S. The plot of this movie has something to do with Stonehenge.
Yeah, we'll
right.
get to Stonehenge.
Go on.
Okay, so this is the thing that I remember. Again, I don't even think I've seen the other Halloween movies, but I saw this one when I was a kid, and I remember the masks, and I remember the magic pumpkin, and I remember the jingle. I remember all of it. It made a real stamp on me. And so there is something, I will say, inherently creepy and horror about this idea, insofar as it scared an 8-year-old. I don't know if it would scare an adult. It certainly didn't scare me watching it now, but this isn't as patently ridiculous as it may sound. But the idea is that at the bottom of all these murders, there are a brand of wildly popular, for no apparent reason, wildly popular masks for sale this Halloween that every child must have. They're the must-have masks for Halloween. And these masks ultimately, on the night of Halloween, will kill all the children.
Or at the very least, turn them into insects.
Or robots. We're not sure what the masks are ultimately going to do to you, but it's bad. And
good.
Turn all your insides into insects, and
And all cogs.
It's going to be a mass death event on Halloween.
To what end? I'm not sure the movie even knows.
I'm not sure the movie even knows either. So that's what. So the amateur detective story, the sort of the Nancy Drew story, takes us to the small Northern California town, which is for some reason entirely Irish. To the point of everybody has the lilting, accent. And this town in Northern California is where the masks are made. It's the mask factory. And
Santa Mira, yeah.
Santa Mira, which I guess is a nod to the Body Snatcher movie. That was the name of the town in Body Snatchers.
Mm-hmm.
I might as well be.
Yeah, it's a made-up town name if there ever was one. And so
it's no Nilbog.
What's Nilbog?
Actually, it's very Nilbog and just as green.
Nilbog is the town in Goblin 2 or Trolls 2. Sorry,
Goblin 2
it's
is a
called
better
Trolls
title.
2. There are no trolls. It's just goblins.
See, again, setting expectations and meeting expectations. The movie business has a power to do both, yet it sometimes fails to agree. So the masks at the center of this, I thought, here was a real wasted opportunity. Like if I could sort of go back in time and kind of be in on that stakeholders meeting of what should we do with Halloween 3, at first going into this movie, I thought, oh, are they going to tell me that like the problem with Michael Myers wasn't Michael Myers, but it was like something about wearing a mask, and that a mask is sort of the superpower of Halloween. Like it has a transformative quality to people and can turn people into things that they're not. And I thought, oh, these masks are going to turn all of these kids who are wearing these masks, they're going to turn them into killers. And you're going to have all of these like kids murdering their parents on Halloween all across the nation. And
now there's a good idea.
That felt like a fucking dynamite sequel. And then I was like, oh no, the masks kill them, or they turn them into insects or robots by the end. The merry-go-round of this movie starts to break down so early and so fundamentally for me that all of the Scotch tape in the world is not gonna for me it's not gonna like hold this movie together. And then you add on top of that these really tasteless elements like the sex scenes. And here's my favorite Tom Atkins moment. Are you ready? It's my favorite moment for this character. To me, this moment in the movie is so perfectly realized in telling me exactly who this character is. This is right before the first act break when the doctor and the daughter of the slain man are going to go to Santa Mira to investigate what her dad was doing in this town.
I know what you're gonna say.
Right before they leave. His ongoing problem is he keeps kind of bailing on his children, and he has to like put it off yet again. And so the scene is this: he's standing at a payphone, sort of. It's one of those. It's not in a phone booth. It's just a payphone, and it's a little lower. And he's kind of got his arm, like on top of, like one arm leaning on the payphone, and it's a close up of Tom Atkins, and he's on the phone with his wife, saying like, tell them I'll be there. You know, I can't make it today. Tell them I'll be there as soon as I can. I got to go do this thing. There's a medical conference. I have to. He's like weaving this tapestry of lies about what he's about to go do and who he's about to go do it with. And he says, tell them I'll be there on Halloween. No matter what, we'll be trick-or-treating. I got to go. He hangs up and he moves out of frame to reveal a 6-pack of beer on top of the payphone, where he's like, I can't be with you, children. I gotta go. Hang up. Reveal beer. Grabs beer, gets in car with 22-year-old girl to go to the quote-unquote medical conference. It was this moment where I was like, I know this guy. I know everything I need to know about him. There's nothing I like.
Don't like him.
There's nothing, like, he's my villain, and I'm kind of stapled to this guy for the rest of the movie. And
that's what I like about it.
and he's so clearly not even going to get to the bottom of this murder because of the 6-pack of beer. It's like, who's gonna go solve a mystery without a sixer? Nobody.
And who,
like a
for
sixer
one
of High Life. It was like this cheap ass.
And who for even 1 second believes he'll be on the doorstep of his children's home to take them trick-or-treating?
Not even his children believe that.
I on that same scene, I made the note, every new scene, there's 3 new reasons to dislike Daniel. He's taken a 6-pack on a road trip. He's neglecting his children. He's lying to his ex. I think I may be misremembering it, but I think that scene is even better than how you described it. I think you can even see the 6-pack like throughout the shot, but you just assume it belongs to like a homeless guy who left it there, and it's at the end of the end when he hangs up the phone and then picks it up that you realize that it's just his beer for the road. It's incredible.
No, it is. It's the way somebody would grab like a bag of chips for the road.
Yeah.
Like this is not
right.
This is not getting drunk beer.
To Santa Mira.
This is not getting drunk beer. This is just for the drive for the hour-and-a-half drive to Santa Mira beer. That's all this is.
Oh God, I love this movie.
Oh, it's the worst.
Did you think about all the missed opportunities they had, too, because of how shitty this character is? Because I kept thinking, what if he was not an alcoholic, but an alcoholic in recovery, who, because of his alcoholism, is not allowed to see his kids at all, and then starts on this journey with this younger woman, and instead of having sex with her, has a paternal relationship build with her?
I guess that was just not...
All of that shit kept bubbling up. I was like, why didn't they do this?
Yeah, that was not on the menu in 1982. Like that was just none of that. What you described was on the among the list of possible choices.
Two caveats to that. You're not wrong, Mike. But the 2 caveats to that is I mean, I've seen this movie maybe like 3 times now. The first time when I saw it, I thought, well, this is actually quite a big departure for the Halloween audience, who are used to a much younger cast.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, it's like to suddenly have Tom Atkins as your lead. I thought, I can see why that's difficult to take. But think about the first 2 Halloween movies. They're all based around the partnership of, I mean, they're not on screen much together, but it's the 2 poles of those movies. Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis, Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. And this is just that same. I mean,
they're never
they
really
don't
working
have sex
together, though.
They're not on screen together, and they don't have sex. But it's like it's the same
because we somewhere
he never
somebody
puts
knew
in
somebody
his
knew
mouth.
somewhere somebody knew not to have a love scene between Donald Pleasance and Jamie Lee Curtis. Like somebody,
Right,
there was a taste.
Yeah, exactly.
There was
Right.
I can tell you for a fact it was considered.
yeah, like there was somebody there eventually to just say no, that's not a good idea. We're not going to do that.
Also, I got a fun fact about this movie. The very first shot that Tom Atkins and Stacey Nelkin shot, the sex scene.
Oh God, it's like Welcome to Hollywood kind of.
Right?
Well, his ass looked too good that day to pass it up. I think.
Oh, they just.
I think he was
they
he was
moved it
like,
up in the
this
schedule?
ass is not going to stay this shape once I get to craft services.
He said,
Do it now."
Tommy, I got to talk to you.
I got a
I'm having
window."
A good ass day. I think we got to go hotel room first.
There's a great documentary. It's 5 hours long, so you really need to be hardcore to stick it through. It's available, I think, on Shudder, called In Search of Darkness. It's about 80s horror, and it goes year by year. And Tom Atkins is an interviewee in here, and he is absolutely delightful. And when he's talking about Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, the first thing he says, and I don't even know if a question was asked. And he just went, "Oh yeah, that's where you see my ass."
Yeah.
Back when I had an ass.
Oh God, barely. How old would you put Tom Atkins at the filming of this movie? Don't look it up.
Anywhere from 42 to 78.
No.
What would you say, Mike?
I think I'm right when I say he's like 47 and she's
12.
22.
You're almost dead on, Mike. He was 48. He was 48,
Okay.
and she was 23. But you're not wrong either, Tom, because he looks like he's a hard-lived 48. Like he's been rode hard and hung up wet. Like
He looks like he's pushing 60.
and
Later on in the movie, they reveal that Conal Cochran is a Highlander. They mention it very casually. It seems like a big deal to me that he's kind of immortal.
yeah.
I would not be surprised if the same revelation came out about Tom Atkins.
I wouldn't be surprised
that
either.
He's been alive for hundreds of years.
I'm just saying.
just
I'm just
wanted-
saying that there is in movies, and this is persistent to this day. In movies, there is this sort of a tacit assumption that it's okay for older men to be with younger women, and for actors to have love scenes with actresses half their age. And so that is definitely at play here. And I would just say, for people who haven't watched this movie, it's only that sort of uneasiness is only made worse by the fact that she doesn't even look 23 yet, and he looks way older than 48. So it really has like not a father-daughter kind of split. It has like a grandpa-grandkid kind of split to it, to watch this, which is why it made it so unwatchable for me. And I just was like, ugh, get me through the next 90 seconds of this sex scene, because it's mercifully short. I'll give it that.
And something that really backfires is when they, and I can assume, I'm assuming, to give the scriptwriters the benefit of the doubt, they were like, we should probably address this age disparity. I think they were probably thinking that
after they say have sex.
So after they've had sex multiple times, I think it's inferred.
Yeah, it's shown multiple times.
He asks her how
He
old
says, "Wait
she
a minute,
is.
how old are you?"
She doesn't really she gives an ambiguous answer, and they continue on. So
Right.
that's not helping. It's like, oh, okay, statutory rape is on the cards. Fine.
I said this. It was the least sexy first kiss since Dolly Parton and James Woods in Straight Talk.
Straight talk.
See, that makes me sick.
I can't believe you wrote that down, because I didn't write it down, but I thought of it because I remember us watching that movie
Yeah,
and talking about
I think that's
together.
that's for me, the one in Straight Talk is the worst screen kiss of all time. And this one was
because I did
second.
yeah, I did write down worst first kiss ever.
Yeah, it really was. No, and Oh, I'm looking at my notes again, Tom, going back to the payphone scene. We don't see the six-pack until he says the line, "I'll call you Monday." That's what he says.
Okay.
"I'll call you Monday." Reveal six-pack. And it's like right there. Like you kind of get everything you need to know about that guy. He also, when they get to Santa Mira, and they... when they get to Santa Mira and she's like... They check into the hotel and she's like raring to go to the factory to investigate why her father might have been killed. He has this line, slow down, it's getting late. I could use a drink.
Yeah.
Where like we clearly see what his priorities are. He has no
he
desire.
got information from that homeless guy.
Oh my God.
By giving him
I have a
swig of
note
his
about
liquor.
that.
Let's give him some credit.
Oh, the town drunk. Yeah, like
you can see at exactly the moments where the racism is cut from this movie, because that drunk is about to go on an anti-Irish tirade.
yes.
And you can see that the Carpenters just like cut the rest of the speech.
I have a note that says, insert homeless man with exposition, thank you.
Yeah, he's a kind of crazy Ralph sort of character.
Right.
But also it was we've started, being in the middle of a pandemic. Mike and I have started picking out like our COVID moments from the movies. Mike had one in Rambo 3, which is like, that's too many people in close proximity. And here for me, it was that I was just, I thought this is my COVID moment when Daniel gives a homeless man a swig of his open bottle of liquor. But then I thought, actually, everything Tom Atkins does in this movie is COVID unsafe.
He is a walking
like
vector.
literally everything he does does not respect social. I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. The three of us, again, here talking about Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. All right, gents. Let's talk about the baddies.
Oh, I love
Connell
one of my
Cochran.
favorite baddies.
Is it?
One of my
I knew it would be.
Favorite baddies.
Although every time I see him, I want, especially because this movie has fucking robots in it, I just wanted him to go RoboCop 2 and say, "Behave yourselves!" Because there's nothing I love more than when he yells at two robots to behave themselves.
I think on paper there's nothing wrong with this guy, and I like the actor and I like the performance. It's just basically imagine an evil Willy Wonka. I mean, it's essentially what you have. You have
Absolutely
an evil Willy Wonka.
I don't think he's that evil.
Well, he does want to murder all the children in the world.
Yeah, but he's got his
in
reasons.
America.
He does. He
doesn't.
It's to settle
himself
it. He
says-
wants to recalibrate
himself-
Halloween. He wants to make Halloween scary again.
Exactly.
To
Not just
borrow
that,
a
though.
phrase.
He says that this is what he's going to do, and then he says, "Why? Do I need a reason?"
Yeah, well, yeah, but then they follow up with a speech where he says, "I'm a druid, and I know that this is not what Halloween should be. So
I've been around a while.
I'm
and
old.
Every once in a while, we just have to bathe the
Yeah.
fucking old country in blood," is what he says.
Yeah.
And I think that, as the movie goes on,
P.S. with the power of Stonehenge. Can we
I think
talk
as the
about
mov-
that?
the movie goes on, it moves, it kind of shifts the blame towards the TV executives who want to get rich off these commercials. I really genuinely think that's how it goes.
I think he definitely uses the sort of there's a cynical nature to what he's doing and how he's going to bathe the world in blood by sort of taking into turning the image of kids staring dumbly at television sets.
Right.
Which, again, this is 1982.
Because,
this is also the year of Poltergeist.
Yeah, that goes right back to my childhood.
Yeah, like this was, we talked about a little bit in Airplane 2.
TV.
We talked about a little bit in Airplane 2 where our parents' age at that point, one of their anxieties was that their children were staring at the television too much because we were playing video games on them and we were watching TV. And so you have here,
if only they knew,
you have here the twin anxieties of kids staring at TV, and there are these new things called computers and video games, and I don't know what they're gonna kill us all. And so like Halloween 2 manages to fuse the two in the way that like it takes the kids staring at TV aspect from Poltergeist, and the computers are going to destroy us all from War Games, and it turns it into one thing. And somehow the battery that runs this whole enterprise is a stolen stone from Stonehenge.
A stone from Stonehenge, yes.
Please.
Well, I mean,
that's the battery.
Early on in the movie, when we see the gas station attendant who is African American,
Yes.
and boy do we know it because we have to have a whole scene about how he didn't murder the guy he's bringing in.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was that got awkward fast.
I was just told to help somebody when you see somebody who needs help.
Yeah.
And
I'm not one of those black
'cause I'm a
people that
person.
Reagan's talking about.
Yeah.
I'm just a regular person.
But anyway, he's watching. I don't know what station he's watching that has this British news report on.
Yes, I love it. In the middle of the night,
on.
gas stations, guy somehow has the BBC on in 1982.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
In this kind of early cable era, but on a TV in a gas station, as you say. But it's that moment, and we have them in virtually all the sequels that we've done. It's like, oh, okay, can't wait to call back to that.
Yeah, right.
And because that they planted that where they did and when they did, it flew completely by me until later on. I was like, I kind of vaguely remember at some point in this movie there was a news program on about the mystery of the missing Stonehenge rock.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Jesus Christ. Like, did you need these computers to be powered by the magic of Stonehenge? Like, isn't that a point?
Computers at all, really?
Oh, God, but isn't there a point at which somebody just throws a yellow flag and say, "You've gone too far. We don't."
Well, no,
need
they added it. I mean, it's like the robots. It's like, yeah, they again, it's that early '80s thing of being exactly as you said, Matt, like being mystified by new technology to the point that you just don't know what to do with it. Except for it to be pure MacGuffin.
I just love that.
That's all you can do with it. And but the original Deborah Hill logline for this was it's witchcraft meets the computer age. That's what Nigel Neal wrote to. He wrote this something that was very satirical. He knew how to get horror out of it, and in the subsequent rewrites, they took all the horror out of it. It's interesting, and it actually comes across as, I think, more on the satirical side. About television, about children being corrupted by television, the profiteers, who just want a 43 share,
right,
for their the major networks. All that stuff is like, it's dominant here. At the expense of like suspense and horror and traditional terror, which is why I think this is satirical science fiction, not scary science fiction.
It's certainly not scary.
Yeah.
It's certainly not scary, and I think you're right. I think it does.
And then they panicked and said,
"Oh,
we need robots."
That I just
put
never
something
understood
scary
the
in there.
leap. This is one of those, Mike. We've talked about this before. You know my take on Deep Blue Sea, and my take on Deep Blue Sea is in trying to cure Alzheimer's, the scientists make sharks intelligent accidentally.
Yeah, write a paper about that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, hey, you guys are done. You don't have to. You don't have to worry about the Alzheimer's thing anymore. Like you publish the fact that you've figured out how to make sharks intelligent. I look at this in the same sort of way. There's like this Willy Wonka character. He's figured out a way to make these automatons. These realistic automatons. But that's not his real goal. His real goal is to make Halloween masks that shoot lasers into the base of people's skulls that turn them into
mush and bug
people, and that
it's like a 13-year-old kid got hold of the script.
It's great. It's like and the automatons were just a step along the way, where it's like, no, you could have bathed the world in blood with your besuited assassins. That
exactly right.
You didn't need the mask thing, and so it's like it's a hat on a hat on a hat. Eventually, and that's what I get to. Like you talk about a 13-year-old getting hold of the script. It's like, and you keep doing that, and then the masks are all somehow powered by microchips and computers and these things that we don't understand. And here's the real secret of that is that the little chip inside the computer is actually a chip from Stonehenge. And now it's like we are so far from shore. By the time we get to, and the chip and the microchip is
land is not in sight.
We are so far from shore that we are lost. We are now officially lost at sea, and the movie tries to kind of wrap itself up in this destroy the factory, make it out just by the skin of your teeth with the young girl, only to find that she's somehow now a robot, and that she now they pull this, they take the last half hour of Terminator and they kind of condense it into a minute and a half, and she just kind of keeps dying and reappearing. There's nothing that the film can do to kind of come back from the contortions that it took to get to
except there is an absolutely brilliant cliffhanger ending that reinstates the original ending of Invasion of the Body Snatchers that they weren't allowed to do at the time. Brilliant.
I agree with you that the ending, that the final shot and the final thing of him back at the gas station, with our friend the gas station guy.
Not that their previous acquaintance has anything to do with the story.
No, not at all. Not that
it never comes into play.
The gas station guy never goes, "Wait, weren't you the doctor from that?" No.
Yeah, never.
Yeah. Nothing. It's just it was the same thing of like
recognition.
Of like we need a set. We got an extra day. Like we're gonna get we'll get the actor over here and we'll just make it happen. He's got to make the phone call from somewhere, and so this is this apparently is the first gas station you run into when you flee Phantomira.
Exactly, when you flee.
Next gas station, 300 miles.
Right. If you're fleeing Phantomira and you need to make a call or warn anybody about anything, this is where you're going to have to stop.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, begs the question, because when they drive to Phantomira, and this gas station is within running distance of that gas station.
Right.
When they drive to Phantomira,
it's all day. They drive a while.
It's all day.
Yeah.
And yet the gas station attendant takes the guy, Ellie's father, to his hospital.
Right. So the geography does not match up.
Which is apparently days away.
Yeah. The
all day.
The geography does not.
I think of it like
all.
that Simpsons episode where Homer realizes that his commute to work is circuitous and that he actually lives behind the power plant. That's the way I think of it.
Right. That they were like, we're going to go to Phantomira and we're going to go around the planet.
He gets out of his car and
way.
waves to Marge and Bart.
Right.
I got a couple things I want to talk about. One, in the 13-year-old boy, this is just a quip, but referencing the 13-year-old boy that got a hold of this script, I kept imagining John Hurd's character from Big, like sitting down with other grown-up writers and saying, this doesn't happen. You don't just walk into a room and say bugs, and bugs get into your movie.
Yeah.
I kept imagining that as like part of the writer's room for this movie.
Yeah.
Because of all the nonsense. 2, I want to talk about Ellie as a robot. Because I have a theory that she was not a robot the whole time.
You're
and
correct.
that she's still strapped somewhere in that factory.
Yeah, I think I think she was a living, breathing person. And my confusion was, I didn't know if the events of the movie turned her into a robot or if that, because that's completely within the realm of possibility. That's not
like when he dropped the buttons, the lasers, one of the lasers hit her and turned her into a robot.
Turned her into a robot. Or that she is like you said, she was just strapped down. She never left the table where she was imprisoned, the room where she was imprisoned, and that he had just done the whole getaway with
he rescued the
robot. They made a robot version of her, or they transmogrified her into a robot. Either one within the scope of the logic of the film is completely plausible. And both are deeply unsatisfying.
And it's not out of character for Daniel to go into entirely the wrong room.
Yes.
It's like okay, she's in that room, and then he just forgets, what it is along the way, takes a swig of his brown paper bag liquor, and gets the wrong room.
Or that he never paid such close attention to her before that he would notice if she had been swapped with a robot.
It's all a mess, and it's a total misstep. I don't know why the reveal of Ellie as a robot doesn't serve any plot function except to give us like a kind of few jump scares, which end up looking unintentionally hilarious, partly because of how badly Tom Atkins and action combine in this movie, but also because it's absolutely ludicrous that he keeps getting attacked by different parts of a robot that is already broken.
Speaking of Tom Atkins and action, I'm going to give you my favorite. If my favorite part of the movie was the 6-pack on the payphone,
mine too.
My second favorite part of the movie was at some point he's running. He's in a foot chase from the police in Santa Mira, or not the police, but the Reaganite assassins.
Reagan bots.
Yeah, but they're in cars. They're in cars, and he is running on foot. And you can picture this town. It's like the town from the Birds. It's just this like a kind of Petaluma-esque, Bodega Bay kind of coastal Northern California town. And he's running. It's very quiet at night, and so he's running, trying to stay out of sight from the cars that are kind of roaming the little small downtown of this area, and he waits for a car to pass, and he makes a break for it in the way that your hero does. When the car passes, you make a break for it, and you run to the next thing that's going to hide you. And so we see in one shot, they don't even cut away and try to make this look good. They just see him run across the street, and he's 48 years old. He looks 67. And the move is, I'm going to dive into the bushes next to the picket fence and hide. And they just have the actor do it. And you see this man leap into the bushes and fall into the bushes with the exact amount of grace that you imagine he would do, which is to say no grace at all. There is this oof kind of moment where I felt pain. I felt like, oh, he cracked a rib. He definitely cracked a rib on that one. His sort of.
I'm constantly living in fear for like how Daniel's gonna end up.
He was not ready for this.
That's what brings you to the edge of your seat for this movie, Tom, is how and when poor Daniel might break a bone, a brittle bone.
he's not ready for this is kind of what I like.
But
toxic masculinity rapist aside, he's this affable, potentially middle-aged man, kind of
Potentially.
dragged into this situation, and he plays that.
There's something
Through
about
the end, and he plays it with a deft and a light touch where he can, and that's what.
This to me did not look like
it goes beyond redeem this character for me. It makes me actually enjoy him, and similarly with Conal Cochran and Dan O'Herlihy's performance, I just get the sense that he's a nice older gentleman who is cheery for no reason, and I love people like that. And it's just, there's a wonderful scene where he just walks out of the factory, looks at his pocket watch, up to the sky, and just like chuckles to himself. I was like, this is a guy I want to be around. And it makes everything that he does.
Except for murdering all the children, he's delightful.
Well, but I mean, culture is letting him do it. I think that's the point here.
I'm all.
They don't give a shit. The people don't give a shit what he's doing to these kids as long as he makes them a buck. Right?
I
point.
I actually had no problem with the evil Willy Wonka.
No.
I
it's what everyone loves about this movie, even people who hate these movies. His performance, and his characterization of what you expect to be. I mean, it's the thing. It's like right from the first time you see him, the expectation is that he is he's going to be monstrous. And, he turns on a dime sometimes, and you see that other side of him. For the majority of the time, like, the way he presents himself to people is for real. It's like the way he talks to people and how cheery and all this kind of fake Irish charm that he has is actually not. It's actually his character. And I love the fact that there's no, like, even when he's foiled, he just gives Daniel a round of applause, and I was like, yeah, that's what a nice old gentleman would do in that situation. There's no like Blofeld, I'll get you next time.
Yeah, I loved the polite golf clap. That was great.
Well, that, like I said, I've for his performance in moments like that were in a bubble, delightful. I just felt like the movie was so far at sea, like there was just it was beyond rescue. And I'm all for,
at that point, you're right.
I'm all for an anti-hero, and I think there's something, there's this character, and then you can look at a character like like Nick Nolte in 48 Hours as being sort of an analog of like a guy who's who can't maintain a relationship, who is on the bubble of being sort of acceptable to society, but there's still kind of one thing that he's going to do right. There's still one thing that he values. I just feel like with this character, with Daniel, there's what is his superpower? Like, what is his thing? Like, he's not even a good enough doctor in the way that, I think that's what it tries to trade on. And so it's so bizarre. And his sort of masculinity is like the thing.
Tom's so on board.
Where it's like in the scene
rugged masculinity.
In the scene I was describing, where like him,
it's not that rugged.
In where he's like in a foot chase, like I'm worried about his plantar fasciitis. Like that's what I'm worried about. You don't want that. Like at some point,
up high enough.
No, he's gonna pull something or crack a rib, and at a certain point you want, I think, no matter how anti-hero your hero is, you want to be on their side, and you want to see that there is something that they can do really well and admirably and better than anybody else in the world of this film. And he's continually outmatched, outrun, decent
at every corner.
But that's the thing. The way this movie comes out, and I don't. I think this is probably a palimpsest of the way that this script was mangled and the way that the filming didn't go to plan. It ends up that that Daniel as a character is far more monstrous than the quote unquote villain of the piece. And in the same way that, that weird duality of Piranha satisfies me greatly, that satisfies me like an untold amount here. I don't think that aspect of it was intentional. I think there's actually a lot of things that are intentional and working here. That is not one of them, but it delights me to no end that all the scenes with the villain and the hero.
That the evil guy is nice.
You can
and the
see
nice
the
guy
point
is
of
evil.
view of the villain 100% more than this, this absolute garbage pile of a man. Whose eyes we are seeing this movie through.
Right.
But that's accidental, and without the Tom Atkins filter, I don't know. I think I probably would have felt the same.
Interesting.
And
Did
without
you
the Dan O'Herlihy filter, I probably wouldn't have felt the same about Cochrane too. But you're certainly right that no. Even the most anti-heroic characters that you can think of that are comparable to this have never gone this far in terms of sheer incompetence and inability.
Did you pick up, Tom, going back to my idea of you love this movie because secretly it's a James Bond movie? There's a moment where Daniel steals a cart and hides behind the cart as he's moving the cart in front of the robots. And I thought, no wonder Tom, I wrote down, Tom loves this movie. That's from GoldenEye, 13 years before GoldenEye.
Well, but there is, all of my favorite, not necessarily a Bond thing, but like all of my favorite moments are some kind of Tom Atkins physicality. He had, like, his entrance in the movie, going all the way back to the beginning, he does a fake-out headless horseman. Like, you think he's headless. He walks through the door of his house. You think he's headless. He's just wearing his jacket over his head. Later on in the movie, entirely seriously, he slinks down in a phone booth in a particularly comic way. He wears his jacket like a shoulder pad at one point. The best jacket acting I have ever seen. Only Martin Sheen comes close. So again, it's those touches. Those touches.
There might be a T-shirt there. Jacket acting.
Jacket acting is I'm really won over by that aspect of it. But yeah, for sure. This is definitely in my wheelhouse, and we haven't even talked about the morgue assistant who he relies on for all his information.
Another
who is exactly
person...
like Moneypenny.
Yeah.
He
Another
flirts
person
with
he's
her.
harassing.
Yes.
He flirts with her. Unrequited love between them. He treats her as his secretary, even though she's not his secretary, and neither was Moneypenny, Bond's secretary. So. Yeah, there's definitely those, and he is like, I think we alluded to this in the minisode, but Dr. Daniel Chalice is like Bond as he really would be in the world, just this horrible drunk womanizer.
Misguided fucking
with
fool.
with deeply retrograde views about women.
All I have to say I'm glad the children see their dad as little as they do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
He's better away from them. Yeah, he needs to be away from them. That's my and it's I'm sitting here thinking and asking myself, what is why is Piranha 2 so bad it's good and entertaining, and this movie for me is so bad it's bad? And
because it's not bad is my answer.
I think for me it comes down to like this baseline I would not mind it at all if this character of Dr. Daniel was not our main character. If Ellie was our main character, I would have a completely different view of this movie, honestly.
You'd need a better actor, but for sure. Yeah, you'd need a better actor playing her.
She has the most clear objective. She has the purest motives.
Unless she's a robot.
Which is a
Fucking
distinct
hell. Fucking robot. Right, exactly. They undercut that.
So,
we don't know when she became a robot. Although, did he have sex with a robot?
Exactly. That's the question. Where it's
and that's the other thing I don't like about it, because it lets him off the hook for all his shitty behavior with her. Well, who cares? She's a robot.
Your Honor, she was a robot.
Case dismissed.
In my defense, she was a robot.
You've said that twice. Now put your pants back on.
But she was 12 years old.
She was
a 12-year-old robot.
Can we call this time served? Yeah, I haven't moved.
No, neither have I. But the ones like I think it's interesting as well. Like you're absolutely like the background of Daniel being a terrible father, and his family life broken down. The only plot reason I see that for being in there, apart from like expanding on the character, is that his wife doesn't believe him when he says turn the TV off, because he does nothing but lie to her. So it's a kind of boy who cried wolf situation, and that factors into the fact that that means that we end on this cliffhanger moment where we don't know whether his own children are going to die because of this. So that factors in somewhat, but otherwise I don't see any other reason for him to be as bad a father as he's or him to have children at all. It would be much simpler if he did.
I wish he had never had children.
But I think he and many people have pointed out the irony that in order to kind of like save, not that he knows he's doing this, but in order to kind of save the nation's children, he leaves his children in jeopardy. Leaves his own flesh and blood in jeopardy to do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I don't think the film has kind of quite put together.
No, yeah.
And he hasn't done anything to sort of redeem himself or stop anything bad from happening. He has only made more bad things happen. I mean, maybe there was a phase 2 of Evil Willy Wonka's plan. I mean, clearly, this factory was still loaded up with boxes. There were piles of boxes everywhere, and I kept thinking, like, it's 2 days to Halloween. Shouldn't all these masks have shipped? Like, it should, like, the warehouse should be empty. But there's just boxes everywhere in this warehouse. So I'm thinking, well, there's got to be a phase 2 of this, and maybe he stopped that from happening. But the movie ends with him trying to get people to turn off their TVs and take the commercial off the air, the commercial that's going to kill all the children. And he obviously doesn't. He's not going to be able to do that. And certainly it also seems that like the East Coast time zone, like that ship sailed. Like
that's
those
done.
kids are kids are dead and gone.
Those kids are fucked.
From the point at which Daniel says, midway through the movie, I think we need the Marines, it's very clear that he doesn't know how anything works.
No, we are not in good hands with Dave. Like, he is not the man for the hour. He is not. He's not ready for this.
I was alarmed early on in the movie when he's watching a cartoon in the bar that he drinks at every single day during the day. And he looks at the cartoon on the TV as if it's going over his head. This guy's a doctor. A surgeon, I believe.
Yes. He is in this bar. He's the only one in the bar because they couldn't afford extras. He's the only one in the bar, and the bar plays cartoons unless a patron asks for something else to be put on, at which point the bartender will put on the football game.
Yeah.
I was thinking, what bar is this? And then this is the bar where when Ellie comes in, she says, one of the nurses told me you would be here. And I thought, oh, there's a hospital with a bar in it. I think this is the only explanation, that this is the hospital's bar.
Yeah.
Like an airport lounge. This is the hospital bar.
It's where he gets his rubbing alcohol.
Yeah,
For like
exactly.
bee stings.
It reminds me
But
of
he's,
an old George Carlin joke. Daniel reminds me of an old George Carlin joke where he says, somewhere in the world right now is the worst doctor. By process of elimination, there has to be the worst doctor. And Daniel's that man.
Yes, he is.
That is it. This movie is the punchline to a George Carlin joke.
Yeah.
But also, speaking of like not being able to afford extras, did either of you notice that just after the car explosion, the firefighter who Daniel is talking to, but he's not talking back, and he's doing this like this internal monologue because he's a non-speaking extra and they can't afford to give him lines, and he's doing this kind of non-speaking extra mime of kind of slightly moving his hands in a shrugging way, where his internal monologue is going, you can keep talking to me, but I can't talk back because they can't afford to pay me. And this is what I mean about, like, there are some great performances in these movies. There are some fucking atrocious performances.
Yes,
too.
across the board. Across the board, you do see these people that you're like, you go, could they afford to give him one more line? No, they kept him as an under five,
exactly.
You know, and or that he was a non-speaking extra, or he had a non-speaking role, and act as he might, he couldn't actually utter a word.
Ellie's not much better.
No, I mean it does. It seems like everybody's. Oh God! It's just, this whole movie seems like it was just getting. Just the corners were being cut everywhere.
Which is strange when you're starting from a place of I want to like reinvigorate and come up with a brand new vision for how to do
it is a brand new vision.
Yeah, it's a brand new vision, but it seems so tired and cynical and resentful of itself. There's so much anger, self-directed anger that I get from this movie.
It's the first internet thriller. Come on, guys.
Oh God.
Interconnected microchips? Come on. This is prescient stuff.
I'm happy to let you have the last word there, Tom.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, the John Carpenter score is great. I think. Is there a bad John Carpenter synthesizer score out there? I don't think so.
I think that's really good. I would also say I made a note here that the most believable moment in the movie, and I'm just going to I'm not going to contextualize this for the listeners. I'm just going to say the most believable moment in this movie was when a woman picked at a microchip with a bobby pin and got her face blown off by a blue laser. That was, to me, that was like the simplest chain of events. Pick at the microchip and it will shoot a blue laser into your face.
And I would just end with this movie lost the battle with Creepshow 2 in bugs bursting out of people.
For sure.
Yeah.
Fucking E.G. Marshall.
Yeah, the cockroaches.
Yeah.
That is infinitely more terrifying than what we saw here.
There are some gratuitously grisly deaths in here. They just never... That's it. They stay grisly. Everything about this movie is grisly and creepy, but it never transitions into scares. I mean, the closest you get is when Daniel's Moneypenny is killed, and that they try to call back to some of the suspense-driven killings that made the Halloween franchise. But for the most part, it's creepy crawly kind of horror, which is, not very effective unless you happen to be averse to all those things.
I got
the last word.
I got more creepy crawly out of seeing Tom Atkins' bare ass than any of the bugs or snakes that appeared.
He gives Hank Hill's, non-ass a run for its money. I'll give you that.
Even the man who loves this film will describe his last words of it as not effective. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for
It's not a horror movie.
Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. If we, God forbid, missed anything about this movie, let us know.
We're going to do another episode, so it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Tell us what you think. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Send us an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, our special guest host, Matthew Aldrich, I am Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. We're going to be pitching sequels next time. Stay tuned. Say goodbye, boys.
So long.
3 more days to Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. 3 more days to Halloween. Silver Shamrock.
Give away at 9. Don't miss it.